Hi, I'm Gunargie O'Sullivan, and this is Access Television Red Hot Topics. Today I will be talking about Red Women Rising, Indigenous Women Survivors in Vancouver's very own Downtown Eastside. In this research, we find participation from over 113 Indigenous women who live in the community of the Downtown Eastside. They will talk about the inquiry of the missing and murdered women, what it's like to live in poverty, homelessness, and at high risk as Indigenous women. And we have the co-author, Carol Martin, with me. Hello, Carol, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. So I mentioned you're the co-author. Who also?
Harsha Walia.
Harsha?
She runs the Power to Women group.
Okay.
We received money from the National Inquiry to gather some data from women from the Downtown Eastside. But we thought maybe what's best than to get it from the women who are the experts of the community. So we hired a bunch of about 9 or 10 women to run the focus groups, and they collected all the data from the women.
Okay, and so from over 113 women.
Yes.
What kind of data would we find if we were to...
Everything that touches our lives, everything that we're surviving, all the social problems that's been put upon us, homelessness, child apprehension, addiction, mental health, having to deal with racism, discrimination, stereotype, label, the justice system, anything that affects our lives. And so most recently, on April 3rd, there was a ceremony and a celebration held at the Downtown Eastside Women's Center. Tell us what happened there. Who was on site? Do you know, I was really impressed with the book because it's one of a kind. And Harsha actually fundraised so that we could get it into this book form.
Yeah.
And so you can actually get a copy of it online. But the fact that in order to honor all the women who you have to understand that women, when they're dealing with so many issues, barriers, social problems, addiction, mental health problems.
Lateral violence.
To actually get up and actually come together like this, it's just, I'm really honored to be, to actually stand with the women who can pull themselves up and do something like this. It's about the women. It's about the women, and it's about the issues that they deal with. And if they need to be those people who are going to build that pathway to bring some understanding to what is happening. Because you know what, a report like this, anybody can pick it up, but what happens to it? It gets filtered out, things get lost. The essence of
put on a shelf.
Put on a shelf, collects dust. But the fact is that this gets all polished up. The actual stories of women don't get put out to the public. It's all polished up to fit into the criteria of funding. And as we know, a lot of people apply for funding down here when it comes to listening to women and their stories, because we become statistics down here. So the day that we had the blanketing was a real honor.
So the blanketing happened on April 4th. The 4th at the Women's Center, and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs was there. Stuart Phillip, and he blanketed over 100 women at the ceremony.
And you have to know that someone like Chief Stuart Phillips, he was the only one that came forward when we had the National Inquiry in Richmond. He provided taxis for us to bring the women early in the morning and late at night back into Vancouver. Now you have a lot of organizations down here who say they help and work and do things for our women, but he seems to be, he's very strong in standing with us in our issues, and he's always there. So I was really honored that he was there. Cecily Point was there to do the opening, and we had a few elders, and I'm really, really touched by it, because the women got honored, and they got blanketed, and they got gifted a book and a copy, and they got to invite their family members or friends. And as you know, down here, we create our own families too down here.
True.
Yeah.
So some of the issues, as you said, that were covered in Red Women Rising are like child welfare, the system, how it works against the women, how they end up in the Downtown Eastside, what their stories are. But there's also talk of police brutality. Tell me some of the names of the women that we can find in Red Women Rising.
Oh my
Who are
God.
some of these women like honored and acknowledged?
Like Corinne, Sandra, there's so many of them. You have to really look at the book to open it up, and all you do, and you come across beautiful pictures of women. Like we all know this is a familiar face. This is Veronica.
Veronica.
She does a lot of ceremonial stuff down here. She's part of the Elders Council. She does a lot of work down here.
Yeah.
You just open it up and you see the beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
We're honoring Beatrice Starr, who fought the system when her children were apprehended and were actually put up for adoption. And 4 years, and she got her kids back.
Yeah.
Now talk about inspiring people. This book, when you look at it, I want us to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what kind of lens are we wearing? How are we, as part of this system, contributing to the lives of these women? What lens are we wearing when we read these stories? And it's all about healing. We are not the only people that need to heal. This book here is going to open up a lot of people and a lot of minds. Because you know what? We need people to remove that Canadian lens and read these stories and question yourself, why are those feelings coming up? Where did those feelings come from? Because I think this Canadian system has done a lot of damage to our image as First Nations women, Indigenous women and girls. And I believe that they've contributed a lot to where it's taken our lives. And if you look at this book, that tells you a lot about what we deal with as Indigenous women down here.
Okay, well, we will definitely have a look at this book here that was launched on April 3rd at the Women's Downtown Eastside Centre with the support of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. It was co-authored with Harsha Walia and Carol Martin. And out of the book came 35 key recommendations. You can also find that in Red Women Rising. Check it out, www.redwomenrising. Thank you, Carol, for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.